I don't know why I don't like Aladdin, but I'll tell you, I have a beloved Twitter mutual who I don't think listens to this podcast. I love her. I disagree with many of her takes about theater, but I love her very much. She did point out that Thumbelina is a ripoff of Aladdin, and I've never been angrier in my entire life because I think that I'm so like frazzled I can't even remember the name of the song I'm trying to reference. I have to look it up now. Hold on.
Welcome to Mortified, the Friendship Quest, a podcast where two long-distance friends bounce media recommendations, all in hopes the other will like it. I'm Aaron.
And I'm a smooth set of cheeks, my prince.
And this week, we give Jafar the Elphaba special in the 2013 Starkid musical Twisted. Before we forget about Prince Ahmed, remember you can help us on Mortified the Legitimacy Quest by subscribing to us on YouTube, iTunes, or Spotify, signing up for our monthly newsletter through the link in our show notes, or following us on Twitter and Tumblr at MortifiedPod. Leyla.
Aaron.
What's your history with the Starkid theater troupe?
So, under my photo in my high school yearbook, it does say, "Our history is nothing more than what the losers settled for," which is a quote from a Harry Potter musical. I hope that's enough to extract from.
Yeah, I think that one data point kind of gives us all we need to know.
What about you, buddy?
As for myself, my wife, when we first started dating, was very into AVPM and, made me watch it. And I enjoyed it well enough. I thought the first one was pretty good and the second one was bad, et cetera, et cetera. But, Starkid is a very interesting thing because it's something that I got into basically exclusively because of my wife, and I like a lot of these musicals I've watched with her. I don't like them all, but like I think of all of them, Twisted is my favorite. And like I have like complicated feelings, especially looking back on this one. I watched Twisted first in 2015, and the 6 years in between have things about me have changed and the world. And we're gonna talk about that. But basically, Twisted is about like what if Jafar was the good guy in Aladdin. Leyla, do you want to do a plot summary? Because I think I did Death Stranding, right?
You did. Yeah. You did. I will take this burden off of you. So Twisted, as you said, basically the premise is what if Jafar was the good guy? So in this one, Jafar is a wife guy and a bureaucrat. And as we open up the musical in a parody of the Belle scene from Beauty and the Beast, where you kind of find out that everybody blames Jafar for all the bad things in the kingdom because he's ugly. And, he's kind of the scapegoat. And you get a perspective of like, the initial bread stealing scene from Aladdin, like what happened to the guards and how some of them straight up died in really gruesome ways for this like douchebag stealing a loaf of bread. And you kind of find out that Jafar had a wife, Sherazad, who was taken by the Sultan to be a concubine and then died in childbirth, which we'll talk about it. And then Aladdin is a fuckboy douchebag who finds Jasmine, who is your kind of... You made this note, and I agree with it. She reminds me very much of the 2018 Jasmine. She's very, like, quote-unquote woke social justice-y, but, like, in a weird way. Obviously in a parody in this format. But she decides she wants everything and wants to escape. She escapes, finds Aladdin. And the two of them decide that they're in love, obviously. But as in the movie, Aladdin goes to jail. Jafar pulls him out, sends him to the Cave of Wonders because he remembers Sherazad telling him this story and is like, oh my God, I could use the lamp to save the kingdom and also bring my wife back. Aladdin takes the lamp, becomes Prince Ali, and the rest of Act 2 of the musical is them staving off an invasion from Prince Ahmed, who I just almost forgot, which is a recurring joke in the show, who Jasmine had insulted, and Jafar trying to get the lamp back from Aladdin, and save the kingdom that way when it's discovered that he's like a false prince. I guess the two big spoilers are that Jasmine is actually Jafar's daughter, and Aladdin killed his parents. Yeah, he's a murderer. I don't know.
It's bad.
It's wild. He has like a second personality that's a murderer. So that's the musical. Let's talk about, I think before we get into the characters, as we like leave the plot arena, I do want to talk about the kind of world that they crafted.
Yes, I think that's very important.
Yeah, because when you hear, Team Starkid, they're white for the most part. So when, you hear that they're doing the Jafar story, it's an immediate, discomfort in what are a bunch of white kids going to do with Agrabah. And this is very like, we have a black president, so if we joke about racism, that means it's over kind of liberalism, where they do call themselves out for all the people on stage being white and stuff like that. And they do they don't necessarily, at first, honestly, I thought the first act was better with this because they didn't necessarily commit to a Middle Eastern setting. It was like half French because they were doing a Beauty and the Beast parody. And I thought that was fine, don't commit to anything. But then as the show goes on, they're constantly referencing Allah and they commit a little bit more to the Middle Eastern thing. And it was very 2013, I think is the way I can describe it.
Yeah, definitely. We're just going to go straight into this talking point, I guess. But yeah, I do think it's very much emblematic of that kind of this is what it means to be progressive, is to be yeah, racism's over. And I truly think that this is an an effort on their part to be more inclusive. When they say Allah instead of God, I truly think it's them being yeah, just a reminder, this is set in a place where canonically, there's a lot of Muslim people, and I really think that this is their just effort to try to make this play pay homage to the fact that yeah, we're a bunch of white people doing the story, but we want to acknowledge that we're taking this story that is set in a place that is faux Middle East. I think that's also partially a problem with the fact that Agrabah in itself is a big cluster of just everything from Egypt over to India, just mush it all in one big pot, and that's our story. The palace in Aladdin is just the Taj Mahal, but they're constantly referencing the son of Osiris, which is an Egyptian thing, and everybody is also a Muslim, and it's just Jasmine has a Bengal tiger, right? There's a lot of weird mix up stuff here in Agrabah, right? That is a problem with the Agrabah as was conceived in the original Aladdin. So I am willing to cut them a little slack. I truly do not think they would make these choices today, in 2021. So it's important to note, but I really think that they're not trying to, I don't think it's South Park where they're just yeah, let's do a racist thing, but also we acknowledge it, so it's not racist.
Yeah, listen, in 2013, it would have made me laugh and I would have bought in and seen nothing wrong with it, right? 8 years have passed, and in those 8 years, there's been an accelerated understanding of these nuances. But, we do need to acknowledge that that is part of this. And again, I agree with you. I don't think those choices would have been made today, but they certainly were made in 2013. And I think watching it in 2021, that did color my enjoyment of it.
Yes, I think that's valid. Let's talk about the characters. What did you think of Jafar?
I think that, first of all, we love a wife guy.
Yes.
We love a wife guy. I think that the earnestness in the performance really made this show what it is. If it was played for jokes and not in genuine earnestness, I don't think I would have liked it as much.
Oh yeah. 100%. I think Jafar's performance makes or breaks the show. Like, everybody else is kind of aware that they're like a jokey character. Jafar is like the only person who's like dead set and serious. And I really like that characterization. I think that the actor whose name is Dylan Saunders does a great job of just being very sincere and caring about everything. Like, even though like everybody, the canned line is it's all your fault, Jafar. Like when everybody, like the captain of the guard is constantly saying that to him, and he's like, "No, it's not. What are you?" He plays it completely straight, which I love. I liked Jafar. I think he gives the best performance.
Yeah, that being said, the moment Dylan Saunders opened his mouth, all I could hear in the back of my head was "Welcome to Hogwarts," or however that fucking song goes. Which I should know because I performed it as Dumbledore in college. Anyway.
Holy shit, we have to move on. We cannot break that down right now.
Jasmine reminded me of 2018 Jasmine. She was very funny. I do wish they didn't say that she was 16.
Yes, there's the big problem with the Aladdin character, in my opinion, that we'll get to in a second. But like, yeah, that was not great. The way that they're just like, by the way, she's 16 and Aladdin's 33. It's like, okay, we didn't need that. He's already very clearly a bad person. But yeah, I do like. I honestly think that this form of Jasmine is better than the 2018 Jasmine, just because like she's played as a joke and like all her social reforms are kind of mocked as being like very silly. Like at one point she's just like, all of the people should have slaves, even the slaves should have slaves. It's like, all right, again, probably shouldn't use that kind of language, but also like that's the kind of person she is, and it's very much like that's kind of the spirit that the 2018 Aladdin was trying to capture, and then like that Jasmine was trying to enact social reforms, but also it's just like, the Jasmine in this one is just like, why aren't the people in power doing anything? Like, and the joke is that like she's the princess, of course she could do something about it. But in the 2018 Aladdin, it's very much just like, why aren't people in power doing anything? And it's like, Jasmine, you're the princess. And I know there's a whole plot where it's just like, oh, well, she can't because of laws. But like, it's still, I think this is a funnier version of that Jasmine.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, I walked out of that theater in 2018 not being able to hum a single like line of Jasmine's solo, which they literally stopped time for in the story. And then listen, the I Want Everything song fucking slaps. When she was talking about living on the moon and then also like making it a pie and then also putting it in her hair, I was like, I'm bought in.
Mm-hmm. That
I like
one,
this fantasy for you.
That song and the Twisted song are my two favorite songs from this musical. I think they're great. But yeah, I really liked Jasmine. So Aladdin, the characterization of Aladdin is weird, and like I get why they do it, because like they're like, okay, if Jafar is a good guy, then Aladdin has to be a bad guy. So we're gonna make him a thief. But we're also not going to make him like a Jean Valjean thief. We're going to make him like a guy who is just lazy and just wants to hurt people thief, which is like not really how stealing works. But like, again, this is a parody. They're not trying to make it serious, but also it is just a weirdly conservative bent for this character.
Honestly, like the moment Aladdin came out, it's just, I feel like Starkid has a very specific way of parodying things. Like the moment I was like, oh, Aladdin has to be a bad guy, I was like, he is gonna be a fuckboy douchebag who just wants to bone. And what was he?
Yes.
Fuckboy douchebag. That being said, he has some really funny lines, and I really like the performance of it, but I think you're right. There was something just weirdly conservative and weirdly, not even like conservative, like politically conservative, just conservative in the interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
And then what the fuck was that twist at the end?
Okay, so at the very end, so Aladdin has a song like in the first act, I think, where he talks about how he was orphaned at 33, which is a very funny, like, I don't think the rest of that song is incredible, but that line alone is he's like, orphaned at 33, like, that's really funny.
Yeah.
But then, like, at the third act, like, final confrontation between Aladdin and Jafar, there's just like this whole, if you've seen the two towers in Lord of the Rings, like he gets this like, the camera switches between like one side of his face and the other, and like he keeps turning his head to the left or to the right to like emphasize his two personalities talking, and the other personality is just like, hey, you remember me? I'm the guy who told you to kill your parents. And he's like, oh, wait, what? And like, it comes out of nowhere. It's fucking weird. I think they just needed to add like another couple minutes to the show, and it just really, like, I don't think it was necessary. It would have been fine if they cut this whole bit, but it was very strange.
Yeah, like Aladdin steals from orphans. You really didn't need to like hammer home that he was a bad guy, which I think is something we talked about last week too with Death Stranding, like with villains who make women strip. We get it.
Yeah, we didn't need the bad treatment of women. He blew up a city with a nuclear bomb. Like, we get it. Similarly, we don't need the Aladdin is constantly trying to, coerce Jasmine into sex in like not necessarily a violent way, but in an aggressive and persistent way. Like there's a joke song about taking off your clothes, which is like a reference to the, practically an urban legend. That's like, Disney is trying to submit or, subliminally teach your children to take off their clothes. Like, they make all these jokes about how like, oh, this tower looks like a penis, and like the SFX joke, which is a reference to this thing in The Lion King where Simba falls down and the dust that comes out of him. Like, some people think it looks like the word sex, and some people thought it was just SFX because the SFX team was trying to, like shout themselves out, and like
it was the special effects team.
Yes,
trying to shout themselves.
Yes, that's what it was.
That
but
one.
Yes, and it was that, of course. But like, there's all these like conspiracies about how Disney is trying to make your kids fuck or whatever. And like that's what this song is about. But it's the persistent nature of it, the way in which it just keeps going on and on. I really didn't like it. It made me really uncomfortable, especially the fact that they keep highlighting that Jasmine is 16. It's just like, come on. He steals from orphans. We don't need, he's also a sexual predator. It's a little much.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing, right, is there's actually a couple of moments where this show makes fun of sexual predation, which it's not that I don't think there's room for that, right? I think it can be treated with humor because it's a facet of life. I've definitely made light of, situations I've been in the past, because what the fuck else are you gonna do, sometimes. Wish more of that was in Jasmine's hands.
Yes.
I think that would have made it better. And again, wish she wasn't explicitly 16. If they had just left it ambiguous, it would have been fine. You could say Aladdin's 33 and then Jasmine is whatever, young, but you really didn't need to, guys.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Yeah. Anyway, there's a couple more characters left. How do you feel about Scheherazade? Unfortunately, a character that does get fridged, but how did you feel about her?
I don't know, man. Because I couldn't even pay attention to her because the whole time I was like, you're going to die. I was just like having death vision for Scheherazade. And I was so relieved when Jafar was like, I lost her to the Sultan. I was like, oh, maybe she didn't die. And then he's like, and then to heaven. I was like, God.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I liked her, but, didn't like that she was a plot device.
Yes, I think that's valid. But, I really, again, we'll talk about this, but, like, I really liked her and Jafar's relationship. I thought it was very earnest and sincere, and I loved their performances. And spoiler alert, I cried a non-zero amount of times during this musical, and basically all of them were scenes with either Jafar and Jasmine or Jafar and Scheherazade, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But
oh boy.
Now let's talk about arguably the best character in this musical.
Oh, absolutely, my favorite character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Prince Ahmed, who came to offer his hand to Jasmine, and she had her tiger bite his ass.
Mm-hmm. And like in the original Aladdin, that's played off as a joke, right? It's just like, oh, he's just the mean guy that Aladdin, called him, a horse's ass or whatever. And then Raja bites his butt, and you see his heart-shaped underwear, and then he storms off, and it never becomes a thing again. In this one, like, he's like, a diplomatic actor, and is like, okay, for this insult, you tried to assassinate me. I am now going to invade and destroy your country. And, I thought that was fun.
Hey, real talk?
Yeah?
I forgot. I thought he was like a Starkid invention. I forgot he was in the original movie.
Leyla, you're the problem! You're the reason no one remembers Ahmed.
I'm like, you're describing this scene to me, and it's like not coming.
Okay, hold on. Let's go to YouTube.
Hey audience, this is editing Leyla. We went on YouTube and watched the scene. Back to your program.
Maybe it's because Aladdin is my wife's favorite Disney movie, but I definitely know this guy. But yeah, no, not a Starkid invention. Real character.
Wow. Well, I'm sorry, Prince Ahmed. You're my favorite. Now that I know who you are.
Yeah, no, in this musical, he fucking slaps.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, let's talk about the Vizier and the Sultan, I guess.
I mean, I just brought them in because, like, they are characters. They're fine.
Oh, then fuck them. I want to talk about the guard.
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, shit. What's his name? Is it Hakim?
I think so. Prince Ahmed, second favorite character, because the moment that fucking guard walks on stage, I laugh. There's no time where that straightforward fucking delivery of whatever he's trying to say, or the way he delivers, it's all your fault, Jafar, doesn't get me.
The scene where he's describing Aladdin's massacre in the marketplace is fucking hysterical, because he's just like, because Jafar's just like, oh, something smells like shit, and then he looks over to this guy, and he's like, that's my fault, because we were chasing this thief. There was a bloodbath in the marketplace. The thief pulled the sword from the sword swallower's throat from the inside. A fat guard fell on the man who sits on a bed of nails. And Abdul choked to death on shit. This is all your fault, Jafar. Like, it's so good.
It's even better at the end where the guy who plays Abdul comes back and he's like, look, it's Abdul's twin brother before.
Because Aladdin's just like, or like Jasmine's just like, what did she say? She's like, he never like hurts anybody, and he's like, tell that to Baful's twin brother Abdul or some shit. And like, that's so good. That's a great joke.
It's truly, like, honestly, there were definitely moments where, you're, like, uncomfortable because it's an 8-year-old musical that, like we said, has some decisions that wouldn't be made today. And sometimes it drags a little bit, but God, when it gets you, it gets you. That fucking guard is everything to me. He's also very tall. Did you notice that?
Oh, yeah, he's huge, even without the hat.
Even without the hat. It is wild.
The apple cart. One of the apple carts. They're all turned over.
Oh man,
really good.
Yeah, no, truly, and I mean, like, I think it's actually not a bad lead-in to talking about meta narratives in general. Like, that's a favorite type of Starkid joke. Is just taking like a common expression and turning it on its side. So all the apple carts are turned over. There was a whole gag with the guy who sold Jafar the second half of the necklace that he was looking for, where, the lead up was two expressions that were not common. And then he said he cut my dick off, and he actually meant that he got his dick cut off.
Yeah. And it's pretty good. And I don't actually remember very much about like Starkid's plots to their musicals, but like I definitely noticed in Twisted, like they have a lot of like very direct references to the acquisition of Pixar, by Disney, right there. And like, there's this whole joke that's like, oh, our kingdom was built on these 2 Ds of like duty and diligence or some shit. And then at the end, they're like, we have to bring back the 2 Ds, which is very clearly like, hey, we don't want 3D animation anymore. We want, 2D, more hand animated stuff. And then also there's like a joke at the end where they find a bunch of money, and then, they make a joke that's like, okay, yeah, like how much would it cost for us to buy off Ahmed's army? And it's like, we have 7.4 million drachma, or billion drachma, I believe. And like, that's the amount of money that Disney acquired Pixar for. And it's like, I think it's a very of the time thing of media to be self-aware and to make commentaries on itself. Specifically, I want to reference Frozen, which is all about subverting the tropes of the princess stories that Disney had been telling. Also came out in 2013. But like, there's a part where, what's her name? You'd think I'd remember her because we talked about her for 100 years in Kingdom Hearts 3. Elsa. Elsa tells Anna, you can't marry a man you just met, which is, of course, the joke in, because of like all the previous Disney ones. It's just like, that's just how characters work, is that you meet a man and you fall in love with him and, you get married with him.
Which they make that joke in here too. Yeah, exactly.
And then I think we see this continued on, like specifically in Ralph Breaks the Internet. I'm sure you have seen the clip of like, fucking Vanellope going to meet all the CGI Disney princesses, and they're like, oh, were you like captured or enslaved, or is your mom or all your parents dead? And she's like, hey, are you guys okay? And apparently that clip goes on for far too long in the actual movie. But like, again, right. I feel like this is of a time when like it was cool to comment on meta stuff, to be like, hey, look how we're subverting tropes and pointing it directly out to the audience. I don't think that's very cool anymore. I think that, one, it's just better if you let the reader or the audience figure that out on their own, instead of being like, look, we did the thing. Did you see? And also, like, we live in the world in which Facebook is now literally called Meta. It just doesn't. The future has changed in so many ways. Like, the joke about Disney acquiring Pixar was like kind of funny in 2013. It's not fucking funny anymore because Disney owns half of all major production companies, and it fucking sucks. It's just so weird in which the ways in which that these kind of narratives have changed.
Well, honestly, we could even look back to the start of this trend being in. Hold on, let me look up this release date. I think that the lead up to the 2010s meta narrative discussion, I guess, started in 2001 or 4 with Shrek.
Oh shit, that's a very good point.
Yeah, because Shrek really did the whole like gritty princesses and turning all the tropes on their heads first, and I feel like it was such a turning point for, which, mind you, Shrek was the B project that if you got in trouble on Prince of Egypt, you got sent to work on Shrek.
You got Shrek'd.
But hey, look how that worked out. It started that far back, and then in the 2006s, we really entered that period where there were just like no original movies. There were literally just parody films. Epic movie. What was the one that was parodying 300?
Meet the Spartans.
Vampires Suck. One. Vampires Suck. Yeah. So there's just a bunch of them, and that was like scary movies. So I feel like 2010 through like 14 was really the bounce back from that, when we were really doing a lot of like meta narrative stuff. And again, I think this is really like a time capsule almost, right? Like, I don't think you could introduce this show to new audiences, but it is interesting for us to look back on it as people who like participated in that internet culture, because that's what a lot of internet humor was back then. 8 years ago, it was a lot of like meta narrative stuff, and that's what the media was obsessed with. I do genuinely think it started with Shrek.
Yeah, at least as far as like critiquing Disney specific properties, like absolutely. That's not to say that like, meta narratives haven't always been a thing. Of course they have, but this is specifically in our lifetimes, in our media experience in our experience of media consumption. But yeah, I think you make an excellent point that like, this is really a time capsule. Like, this is not probably a show that I would want my children to watch, or like I would not recommend this to somebody who I wasn't, I didn't have a pre-existing friendship with. Like I was still pretty nervous about being like, Leyla, let's revisit this. You know about Starkid, right?
The funny part is I avoided it like the fucking plague. Every time it was brought up, I was like, yeah, put it on the list.
Anyway,
sure.
Have you heard of Princess Tutu? But yeah, and it was for this exact reason, which is like, no, it hasn't aged well. But like, the thing is that like, despite all of these things, I was, like I said before, like in tears by the end of it because I found it so moving in some parts. That might just be because I'm a wife guy. I don't think we can discount that.
You got those Scorpio feelings, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I've had a lot of emotions this month. But yeah, I just, I associate Starkid specifically with my wife, and, I watched this with her, and we had just come back from like a kind of a difficult Thanksgiving. So like, I was very grateful for her to be there with me. So, Aaron loves his wife. You heard it here first, Mortified listeners. But Leyla, before we wrap up this, I really want to get this into the Mortified canon, because this is something that, we haven't made explicit. What's your beef with Aladdin?
Oh, Boise, Idaho. Okay. So, I don't like universes that don't have rules. So, hear me out. I have 2 scenes in like golden age Disney history that I fucking hate. And it is, listen, R.I.P. Robin Williams is a great fucking song, but I hate it in the context of the movie Friend Like Me. And it's the gargoyle song from Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Okay, that second one is very bad, so you're not wrong.
Because the moment you start putting neon lights and shit in my period fantasy, I start getting mad. I can't do it. I'm too much of a stickler for in-universe bullshit. It makes me angry. It's something I've been working on my whole life. I don't know why I don't like Aladdin, but I'll tell you I have a beloved Twitter mutual who I don't think listens to this podcast. I love her. I disagree with many of her takes about theater, but I love her very much. She did point out that Thumbelina is a ripoff of Aladdin, and I've never been angrier in my entire life, because I think that I'm so like frazzled I can't even remember the name of the song I'm trying to reference. I have to look it up now. Hold on. Let Me Be Your Wings. I think Let Me Be Your Wings is 1,000 times better than the Whole New World, whatever the fuck that song is. I hate that song. I don't know why. It makes me angry. Like, it's just, maybe it's because my dad was a scammer and I'm just allergic to like competent women falling in love with scammers. Is that it? I don't know, but I don't like the movie. That I have not hated a movie more than the 2018 Aladdin since The Great Gatsby in 2012, when I walked out of the theater shaking. Like, I hate 2018 Aladdin. It makes me viscerally angry, and I use it as a teaching example of what not to do in my animation classes. So like, I don't know. I think I just have to exist in order to balance out or your wife's love for it,
That's correct.
I think that's what has to happen, is I have to exist as a hater so that your wife can love this movie.
Mm-hmm. Darkness rises and light to meet it.
It's okay. I respect her choices, but I myself, that being said, I'm just dropping a lot of like lore about myself. I did win a declamation contest in 2008 at my middle school, reciting Prince Ali.
I cannot believe the hypocrisy after all Aladdin's done for you. The treachery.
In my basement, for knowing, just being very spirited in my recitation of Prince Ali, Amorous, he Ali Ababwa. Genuflect, show some respect down on one knee.
Oh, God. It's barbaric, but hey.
I know. Hope you're happy.
I am happy. Oh, God. Leyla, when we are not having Just wild conversations about media that took place in a very strange part of our lives. Where can people find us on the internet?
You can find me at LEYLSES on Twitter and Tumblr. I did just write an essay about a property we're going to be visiting next year, which is a Nietzsche and Bible-inspired JRPG series called Xena Saga. I wrote about how the second installment is genuinely punishing to play and not very fun, even though 1 and 3 are. So you can read that. Aaron, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at AaronSXL, where I talk about health policy and tabletop RPGs. You can listen to the other podcast I do at The Bible Boys. The week that this episode comes out, we will be talking about the weight loss cult that is also biblically inspired. HBO did a series on this called The Way Down. The first 3 episodes are out, and we're going to watch those. So that should be just really, really upsetting if you want to listen to that. I think I should also, at the end of the month, have an essay out about the new Taz Balance episode, or Taz Imbalance, DM'd by Abria Iyengar, but also about a little bit about nostalgia and looking back and how that's bad sometimes. I'm not sure. Right now, the essay's a mess. We'll see how it comes out.
And just to remind all of our faithful listeners, this is our 2nd year approaching the holidays, which is fucking wild. We've been doing this program for almost 2 years now. In December, we will only be doing 2 episodes. We will be talking about that programming later. One of them will be the Princess Switch 3, which I am very looking forward to. And then we will be taking 2 weeks off to spend with our families and loved ones. And then we'll be back in the new year with some real unhinged programming. What did you say on Tumblr? We're going to jump all the sharks.
Yeah, you have no you thought Death Stranding was bad? Holy shit, you should see the lineup we have for season 3.
Oh,
it's gonna be insane.
We're diving right. I can't wait to talk about Xena Saga with you, buddy. I'm so fucking thrilled.
I said Mortified season 3 is gonna jump every shark possible. Buckle the fuck up.
You heard it here first, Paul.
So cannot wait for that. Our theme song is Obsolete by Keshko from the album Filmmakers Reference Kit Volume 2. Find more of their music at keshko.bandcamp.com. Leyla, when we are preparing to close November out, what do we want to say to our listeners?
Well, I just want everybody to remember that you're a very talented writer, a great media thinker, and a wife guy. And a tiger fucker.
I didn't fuck a tiger. We'll see you all next week.